Senator Ben Allen, thank you so much for coming in and making time for us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So first I want to start with just asking you, what exactly is your experience with insurance and what makes you qualified to be the state's next insurance commissioner?
Yeah. So I've been serving in the legislature for over a decade. I've taken on big fights associated with protecting consumers. And I've taken on the insurance industry, worked with, but also against and fought the insurance industry on many, many different issues, especially in the wake of the terrible fires that impacted my district last year. It was a terrible experience. It was right up the road from me. I mean, my mom, we had to evacuate her. I lived 1 block away from the evacuation warning zone with my 2 little kids. And I spent so much of the last year trying to help this community rebuild and get back on its feet. And of course, a big part of this has been insurance problems. Lack of insurance, underinsurance, insurance nickel and diming people, refusing to pay out on time. And so much of my work over the last year and a half has been focused not only on the constituency service work, but also getting deep into insurance policy, running legislation to increase the payouts for contents coverage in the wake of total loss. I'm now working on a raft of bills with my colleagues who represent the Eaton fire survivors to make sure we're penalizing unnecessary delays in payouts from the insurance industry. I've got a bill to give people more time and more information before they get dropped, before they get non-renewed. We got another bill that Assemblymember Harabinian's running to create a science-based set of standards, an independent set of standards associated with smoke damage. Just because your home wasn't burned to a crisp doesn't mean that it's actually habitable. I've also got legislation, though, to focus on how we reduce risk, to get a state-backed low-interest loan program for home hardening. But on the broad scale, what we really have to do is to promote more reduction of risk around the state and make sure that the insurance industry actually rewards it and actually offers real, affordable, available insurance to people on the back end.
So was it the Los Angeles wildfires that ultimately prompted you to run for this office? Like, what inspired you?
Yeah, no, you know what? I've been interested in this area and I've been working in this area for some time. But if I was going to be honest with you, I don't think I'd ever be running for this if it weren't for that experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to, really manage not just the wildfire crisis, not just, the crisis that the state faces right now, but everything, just day one, if you are elected, what would you do as state insurance commissioner?
I think we need more speed. We need to speed up the rate review process. We need to build out our customer service operation. It turns out, one thing I learned during the fires, there's only 34 people handling the incoming calls from working Californians every day. That's less than 1 per 1 million Californians. And we need to really ramp up that operation. I think we need to beef up the enforcement division. And then I think we got to get the ball rolling on a broader, on what's the next step to the sustainable insurance strategy that the current commissioner has put out there. How do we really work to incentivize all of this great work that's happening all over the state to reduce risk in a way that will be rewarded by insurance. Because I don't think we can ultimately ask people to keep putting in all this investment, both on the community level or on the individual level, to reduce their fire risk if they don't feel really confident there's going to be available, affordable insurance there waiting for them on the back end.
The sustainable insurance strategy, just for folks who are watching this, essentially allows insurance companies to use catastrophe modeling and when they set their rates, and in exchange, they'll cover more wildfire risk areas, essentially. That was implemented almost a couple of years ago. I know the ball got rolling on it, but insurance companies have yet to come back to California, several of them that were lost. Why do you think that is?
We're seeing a little bit of stabilization, but I think you're right. The headwinds are massive here. The big challenge, of course, is that the risks continue to rise. We saw what happened in LA last year, and we know that LA is not a one-off. We know that the basics, the fundamentals are there all over the state for us to have more fires. We saw what happened in Paradise. We saw what happened in Santa Rosa. Look at what's happening in Calaveras right now. So this risk is very real, and the global reinsurance market that basically insures the insurers here is tightening up. Is tightening up and making it harder for there to be the capital for insurers to feel really confident, offering people really good, affordable insurance. So that's why I think we need an insurance commissioner who's ready on day one to get in there into deep negotiations with the industry on behalf of consumers and say, look, guys, you can't just keep walking out of this state. You keep paying a lot of lip service to risk reduction. You keep saying we got to lower our risk. We're serious about reducing risk. We're taking on the utilities and telling them that they have to start fixing their problems with regards to ignition. We're getting really serious about putting resources out there to make our forests more healthy. And we're also really interested in changing zoning and rules to make our homes less susceptible to this kind of conflagration. But you insurers have to step up and reward all of that work, all of that investment with a real commitment to affordable rates in our state.
So essentially, to address this homeowners insurance crisis specifically, you would essentially really try to negotiate with the industry. I mean, would you need like new regs? Would you need new laws? Like what would you try to do?
All of the above. I think that the commissioner there's certain powers the commissioner has right now under Proposition 103, but I think one of the benefits I bring to this job is having served a long time in the legislature, having a lot of credibility with my colleagues. The vast majority of my colleagues have endorsed me for this job, the leadership. I've got credibility with them, and quite frankly, we need someone in this job who really knows how to navigate Sacramento, because in the end of the day, as you correctly point out, this negotiation is going to require new regulations and new law that will involve the cooperation of the legislature. And having someone in there who's going to be really strong and unequivocal in support of consumers, but who also understands the complexities of the market and is going to really force a deal here on behalf of California consumers.
I mean, to reach us to this point, I mean, you've been a state senator for the last more than a decade. Could the legislature have done more to check the insurance commissioner? Do you wish, as a state senator, you could have stepped up more?
I think so. Quite frankly, the crisis it's only gotten bad. It's gotten discernibly bad in the last couple of years. It's not that the seeds weren't already planted, but it's really broken out in a major way over the last couple of years. And it's now as a result, a lot more people are focusing on this issue. I mean, the insurance commissioner's race was always a bit of a sleeper. Not a lot of focus on this position because things were just kind of moving along. And now things have gotten really tough. And a lot of it's because of this massive new wildfire risk. Now, look, I've been working in this area for a long time. We actually put our this bond forward, I think 5 or 6 years ago, because we recognize the need for much more serious investment on the part of the state to reduce our risk and to make sure that we had a better approach to our wildlands, our water infrastructure, our investment in firefighting. I personally wish that I'd been able to get that across the finish line much earlier. But it was hard to get people's attention, given all the other things happening with COVID and challenges with the federal government and whatever else. But I'm really proud we got it across the finish line during the last election. It was overwhelmingly supported by the voters. And now I think people in the legislature are really starting to pay much more attention. And I just think it's important to have somebody who's got real credibility in the Capitol, who's also a real fighter for consumers.
Ricardo Latta also had a lot of experience in the Capitol before he was elected to insurance commissioner. He served as a state assemblyman. I want to know, what would you do differently than Ricardo Latta if you're elected?
Yeah, look, I think I'm someone who is going to be really focused on trying to make the system work for working people and for consumers. I'm not, I want to build on what he's done with the sustainable insurance strategy. I think it was a good start, but as has been reported on extensively in the press, it allowed for the insurance industry to get credit for writing policies in high-risk areas, but they were basically writing policies in the lower-risk parts of the high-risk zip codes. And the LA Times, the New York Times have written a lot about this. So we've got to tighten up the rules to make, but I think ultimately we're only going to be able to do it successfully as part of this broad negotiation that I've been talking about with regards to rewarding risk reduction around the state. So I think there's some good bones that are in place right now, but we got to go onto hyperdrive. We've got to speed up a lot of these processes, and we got to have somebody in this office who's just ready to go day one, and for whom this is a passion project. Yeah,
you're, potentially on the brink of voting on something that could further impact the insurance industry right now. Governor Gavin Newsom, his office is floating a potential change in the way utility companies pay out when they're liable for a wildfire, limiting the amount of money that insurance companies could get from those specific payouts. What's your stance on that right now?
Yeah. So look, I really want to make sure that we're. I'm actually chairing the energy committee while I'm also running for insurance commissioner. So I toggle back and forth between these two worlds. And certainly in energy land, there's a lot of concern about how much the fire risks are really making it harder for us to offer good, reliable, affordable electricity to the state. And that's what's motivating much of the governor's plan. The flip side is, it's almost like a balloon. If we squeeze the balloon over here to solve for the electricity rate problems, the last thing I want to see is for us to solve that problem just to create a whole new set of problems on the insurance side. Okay, maybe we drive down electricity rates a little bit, but then we create a whole new set of liabilities that are going to make it harder for people to get affordable insurance. The insurance system's already on the brink too. So we've got to be really careful about how we manage this. And in the end of the, and we also have to make sure we're being really fair to survivors. I mean, as someone who represents a lot of people who went through the madness of these fires and who spent a considerable time in Altadena, I really want to make sure we do everything we can to, everything we need to do to protect survivors too. So this is going to be a really careful and tricky balancing act. For me, I'm going to be all about making sure we're treating survivors right, justice for survivors, and also protecting consumers. If we can come up with a plan that's going to do that, I'm open. But that's the contours of the negotiation right now.
For the first time, California voters are going to decide between two Democrats in this race, with you and Jane Kim. What would you say is the biggest difference between you and Jane Kim?
I think with me, you get someone who's got a real track record of delivering results for consumers day in and day out, over a decade of work in the legislature, really working intensely on insurance policy, working on fire risk related policy year after year after year. My opponent Jane's come out with a plan to have a state-run comprehensive single-payer home disaster insurance program. Look, I think she's kind of transposing popular support for a comprehensive single-payer healthcare program onto disaster insurance. Single-payer healthcare is a real thing that exists in a lot of countries. What she's proposing with disaster insurance doesn't exist anywhere in the world. I think the closest program is in New Zealand, but that only covers up to $167,000 per unit. It doesn't cover fire, and it's a much different risk profile in that country. So, I'm someone with a bold plan too, but it's actually grounded in reality. It's grounded in what can be done. I'm not going to make promises that I can't keep. Or at least I'm not going to try my darndest to keep. And so I think if you look at where our plans are, how grounded they are, the background, the track record of actually working in this area, delivering for working people and for consumers around the state, it's why the Consumer Federation looked at our two records and decided to endorse me. And I think that's going to be one of the big differences between us.
But she has a very specific idea to overhaul this office that, I mean, right now people really want a major change. What would you say to people who are looking for some huge change right now? I
want major change too, and I actually have a really doable major plan of change to help fix the program. But what I don't want to see is for the state to be a guinea pig for a totally untested, massive overhaul that could break the budget. I've served on the budget committee. I know how strained the budget is, even right now.
How much do you think it would cost? I asked her. She couldn't give us a dollar amount.
I mean, we've heard. So some independent analysts have estimated, tens of hundreds of billions. It's that kind of size of liability. Given how now, of course, it depends on. I'm basing this on what I've heard, on the most robust promises I've heard her make to certain groups. Sometimes she'll scale it back a little bit, depending on the kind of questioning she's getting. But yeah, there's a Washington Monthly article that came out a few weeks ago that where some independent analysts have some pretty scary figures as to what her plan could cost. And I just think to myself, let's look at the recent disaster in LA alone. $40 billion, depending on how you count the numbers, that would suddenly be on the state's books. I mean, we are barely keeping it together in spite of the record gains on the market in NASDAQ. We're barely keeping the budget afloat with all of the new, with all the various things we want to do. And the last thing I want to see is for us to now put an additional massive new liability that could just sink the whole ship.
Okay. Another separate race, candidate for governor Javier Becerra has actually said that he wants to declare a state of emergency to freeze insurance rates. If you were also to be elected and he as well, I mean, would you allow that to happen? Would you call him out? Would you maybe legally challenge that?
I would want to work with a new governor. I mean, regardless of who wins, I mean, certainly I think it's most likely it's going to be Secretary Becerra. I'd want to work with a new governor. I mean, obviously a partnership is really important. You know, I understand and sympathize and empathize with this desire to freeze the rates. I get it. We got to figure out a way to move forward in a way that's going to focus on healing the market and keeping rates affordable on both on the short term and the long term. You
wouldn't freeze the rates.
I would want to work with the governor to come up with an action plan that was really focused on affordability. So, you know, I would be comfortable with a temporary freeze on rates, for example, while we figured out a plan going forward that was really focused on trying to you know, fix some of these processes I was telling you about, speeding up the rate review process, putting more resources into enforcement, really working on risk reduction, working toward this grand negotiation. You know, because in the end of the day, I don't think it is, you know, what's also unacceptable from my perspective is just continually rubber stamping massive rate increases. That's not going to work for our state. That's not going to work for working people. So we've, you know, this is all about affordability and keeping rates low. But we've got to figure out a sensible and workable path to have a vibrant, robust, competitive, successful market that will provide the underpinnings of affordable rates for people.
I know, you know, you mentioned Jane Kim's plan could be really, really expensive, but I mean, to do what you're doing, do you imagine the Insurance Commissioner's Office would also need more money to do some of this?
I think, I mean, a modest amount, absolutely. Yes.
Like how much?
Yes. I mean, I would want an additional $10 million for the department to help pay for the kind of staffing that I really think that we would need. I understand the budget's constrained.
Like what kind of staff?
Folks to answer the phones to help people when they're in trouble. You know, again, it is unacceptable to have less than 1 per 1 million Californians answering those phones at the department. I experienced this personally. People had to come to my office as the state senator.
There are less than 40 people answering phones.
Yes, 34 people handling these kinds of claims at the department. You know, as a result, I mean, my office had to pivot to help answer all these calls, and I'm so proud of my staff. We helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people get the payouts that they deserved. But one of my questions was, why do you have to come to your state senator just to get basic help? When, you know, first of all, the insurers should be taking care of this stuff on the natural. Mm-hmm. And by the way, some were very honorable, others were terrible, but some were good. And then secondarily, the department should be handling these kinds of situations. And so I really want a much more robust customer service orientation at the department, and some of that involves resources. I also think that the process of speeding up all of the processes over there, including the rate review process, including enforcement, also having real-time collection of data so that we're able to know much more quickly when we're seeing patterns out there of insurance companies delaying people and nickeling and diming people and screwing them around. You know, I want that information within a couple of days or weeks, as opposed to finding out months later that what we saw at State Farm and elsewhere was a true pattern. So I just think we need some more resources. Again, I don't want to break the budget. I'm very budget conscious, but I do think an additional allocation to help the department really get much more serious about helping people and getting the data collection they need is an important part of this story.
All right, Senator Ben Allen, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.